Episode 3 of The Last of Us begins somewhere 10 miles west of Boston. Ellie is seen resting as they are closing in on their target. Ellie asks Joel if he needs his jacket back, but Joel ignores her, as Joel seems to blame Ellie for Tess's death, and he still hasn't forgiven her for what's happened with Tess. Ellie calls him out and tells Joel not to blame her for something that isn't her fault. She never asked to be taken out of the city, and they needed the batteries. Joel seems to agree to Ellie's point, and the pair continue to walk on, heading along a 5-mile hike to Bill and Frank's place. They stop at Cumberland Farms in a rundown and abandoned gas station, as Joel needs to grab some stuff he hid earlier. Ellie finds an arcade machine for Mortal Kombat, and reminiscent about it. As Joel tries to find his stuff, Ellie wanders off alone and finds a hatch leading down to the basement. She becomes curious and decides to explore alone. A snarls then scares Ellie, where she uncovers one of the infected. This time though, the infected is wedged into the wall, with fungi growing up the side of their head. Ellie hits the killer blow and puts the creature out of its misery. With little ammo left, Joel decides to leave his shotgun behind before moving on. As they do, Ellie riffs on the Fedra school and blames the government for not being able to contain a pandemic. While trying to understand how all of this began, Ellie claims it was mutated through monkey, but according to Joel, the cordyceps mutated, got into the food supply worldwide. People bought the food and eating enough of it got them sick, eventually leading to the infected biting everyone else who wasn't infected, and says it took 3 days for the infection to spread worldwide. The pair sees a crashed airplane and Ellie tells her desire to fly in an airplane. Then they come across numerous skeletal remains in the woods, which Joel explains are ordinary people who couldn't find a home in the QZ, so the soldiers took them outside and decided to gun them down. The story is cut back to September 30th, 2003. Soldiers are seen evacuating everyone, and Bill happens to be watching from his house and patiently waiting for the soldiers to leave. As soldiers round everyone up and prepare to head out, Bill hides in the basement and manages to avoid detection, despite the mandatory evacuation notice. Bill heads outside wearing a gas mask and sporting his gun, before seemingly realizing and learning that he's well and truly alone. Like any true survivor, Bill grabs as much gear as possible, including several drums of petrol, supplies at the Home Depot, and a whole bunch of alcohol. With his generator outside, Bill puts up an electric fence around the perimeter and has enough to keep going for years. Bill is eating well, cooking up his own dinner, watching the infected take themselves out through his various traps, and managing to survive for a good 4 years alone. That is, until when one of the holes is triggered, and Bill finds a guy called Frank inside. Now, Frank was originally in a group of 10, trying to make it to Boston, but now it's only Frank left. He's also completely unarmed too. Bill decides to let the guy out, although he keeps a close eye on him. He checks for infection too, and Frank is clear. Bill allows Frank into his home with a change of clothes and a promise of food. As the pair sit down to eat together, Frank is shocked at the hearty meal and the perfect glass of wine. After eating, Frank starts messing with the antique piano in the living room and begins playing it. Bill begins playing thereafter, a heartfelt, grief-stricken song about a guy he lost. Frank understands his pain and the pair begin kissing, and things seems to be going great, especially when they get into bed. But then we fast forward to 3 years later. Though both Frank and Bill seems to love each other, yet are seen arguing, as Frank wants to paint the house, fix up some of the shops, and get gas for the lawnmower. Frank wants to invite more people into the community and allow them to visit. Frank, though, has been talking to some friends on the radio. Friends that happen to be Tess and Joel. While eating together, Bill seems to point the gun towards Joel and Tess, as he is paranoid of their presence, but then Frank calls him out and takes Tess to show something. Joel and Bill end up talking outside, where Joel points out that there are things in the QZ he could get for him, specifically gear to help with the perimeter fence, which Joel claims has only about a year left at best. Eventually they agree to work together. They also agree to use music on the radio as a code, which is Frank's idea. Before they part ways, Joel warns that raiders could come and attack at night, and they need to be ready in case that happens. As we cut forward to 3 years in 2013, both Frank and Bill are seen working out, and Frank shows Bill some cultivation and tells he has traded a gun with Joel and Tess for seeds so they can grow strawberries. Bill then becomes emotional after smelling and tasting the fresh strawberries, and this unfortunately happens to be the calm before the storm, as raiders show up at the perimeter. Frank is woken up by the blast and searches for Bill, where Bill is seen fighting the raiders and manages to hold them off, but ends up getting shot in the process. Thankfully, they survive as we jump forward to another 10 years, as Bill and Frank both grow older together. Frank is not doing so well though, and decides that this is going to be his last day. With no doctor and no cure, Frank wants to go out on his own terms, with a great final day planned. Frank's plan includes getting married and falling asleep in Bill's arms, and after taking a whole stack of pills, they proceeds as planned. Meanwhile, in the present, Joel and Ellie arrive at Bill's place. It's abandoned. They make it into Bill's house, but between the rotting food on the table, Ellie finds a note on the living room table from Bill. They finds that both Bill and Frank had killed themselves. Bill also leaves behind a key for his car too. Ellie then reads out the letter. Within this note, Bill admits that he hated the world until one person came along. That changed his mind and made things worth saving. He suggests not to open the bedroom door. He also gives the bunker code and anything else they may want to take too. That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do, and God help anyone who stands in our way. The note reads, before heading out for the lab with unknown location, Joel decides to heads up for Wyoming and meet up with its brother Tommy, and claims that Tommy might have some information about the lab, as he used to be a Firefly himself. In the bunker, the pair grab as many supplies as possible. This time though, Ellie finds a handgun in the drawer and stashes it in her bag. They play some music as they head out of the Bill's place. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. If yes, then please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more of compressed recap videos.